Let's talk now, though, to Rupert Bell, talks of royal correspondent. Lots of pictures on the front pages this morning. Rupert, very good morning to you, of King Charles over in Canada defending the Commonwealth. I'm not sure he's on the right footing here. Some people are being a bit dismissive of his rather, shall we say, political leanings on this one.
A very difficult area to navigate for him, it was, Mike, because it's like the state opening of Parliament here. You're basically reading a script prepared by whichever government, the government of the day. And the same in Canada with Mark Carney's government. Obviously, he, as the head of state, goes to do the state opening of Parliament. He's obviously reading a script that has been cleared by and produced by Mark Carney's team. And it was always going to be a difficult one, given the sensibilities of relations with Donald Trump now, who was saying he wants to turn it into a 51st state.
Right.
So it was always going to be very difficult. But I think he certainly seemed to chime correctly with the Canadians, who were very happy to see him there, reading out and saying, that what a strong nation Canada is. He used the phrase, instead of what he would do in this country, my government, the government. So that was differentiating. So you could see that he was trying to make sure that it wasn't entirely his words. It was the words of the Canadian government. And I think that was the very difficult sort of a tightrope he had to walk. And I think in the main, he's got away with it. But I think, the interesting thing is, will there be any reaction from Donald Trump, seeing the king, who he obviously says he gets on well with, putting his penny's worth into the Canadian situation? But as head of state, he's fully entitled to do so, is the king.
Let's have a look at what he actually said.
Today, Canada faces another critical moment. Democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination, and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect. All Canadians can give themselves far more than any foreign power on any continent can ever take away.
Yes, I mean, I see what you mean. He's almost talking about the Canadians in the third person, isn't he? As opposed to we're all one and the same.
Yes, and I think that's where he's had to go with this, because yes, he's very proud and loves going to Canada. Been there many times. His mother opened the Parliament, I think, in 1957, the first time she did it. So there's a very strong bond between the royal family and Canada. And I think that's the significant point, and why it was a whistle-stop tour. I mean, he's in and out of the country in, 24 hours, but he was pretty busy. But I think the important thing was he was there for the state opening and sort of confirming his position as the head of state and making Canada feel that they're not doing this on their own. And Mark Carney, obviously former Bank of England governor, presumably knows the king well anyway. So I think the positive review from Canadians, the king can come back to this country knowing he's negotiated the political minefield that is currently between Canada and the United States quite successfully.
Yes, indeed. Of course, some might have said, wouldn't it be nice if, since he's on the same continent as his estranged son, he could have met up with him at some point, maybe popped over to Vancouver. They could have had a sort of neutral territory scenario, but Harry decided in his wisdom to go to a sustainable environmental travel conference in China.
Yes, and China, well known for its strong views on environmental issues.
Oh, yes.
Look, I've just been to Shanghai myself, and
have you?
Look, it's I covered a show jumping event there.
Very nice.
No, it's an amazing city, but I'd have to say him going again, taking headlines away, because he went under the cover of darkness, and then he pops up talking at his Travelist conference, which is the part of sustainable travel. But China does, maybe he's thinking, well, we've got to go to China because we've got to try and teach them what I believe in. But it again is showing that sometimes he doesn't always read the environmental room correctly by hopping onto a plane and traveling quite a long distance from California to China, and him too going in pretty quickly as well, in and out visit. But again, taking away some of the headlines from the king, who was actually doing the most important job of his reign. One of the most significant moments in his reign by opening the Parliament in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, he didn't have to go all that way. I mean, I haven't checked the mileage, but I'm assuming that's about a 12-hour flight or something like that. I don't even know if he went on a commercial plane. But, you know, surely if it's a sustainable travel summit, everybody should not go to the actual summit. Isn't that the point?
I assume. Well, I don't. I'm trying to work out sustainable travel. If you're travelling, you're already. It's what you do at the end. I suppose it's what happens at the destination that is environmentally friendly. That, I think, is the object of the exercise. And what they're trying to do is that countries, when it comes to tourism, try and make sure it is as sustainable as is possible. You obviously, you know, if you say you can't travel, then that's going to kill off another part of the. Every country depends on tourism. We're no exception. London needs tourists as much as anybody.
Yeah.
To keep the restaurants, the theatres, you name it, going. But it's a question that for Harry, how does he? This is all part of his new look, trying to make sure that he seems relevant. And this is one of the few things that he's still involved with that seems to be keeping him on the road a little bit. And he's
anything keep him away from the wife, I suppose. I mean, we've all been there, haven't we?
Well, I'll tell you what. I had to listen to the podcast yesterday, Mike. I suddenly get a call. Any chance you talking about the podcast? You really are mean. I don't know what. You must have said to your producer, what's Rupert doing today? Make him listen to the final episode of Confessions of a Female Founder. And I'll tell you how it began.
All right.
Because it was a Zoom call between this lady who's a very successful businesswoman. She's run Spanx, she's opened up and doing brilliant work. But it begins because they're obviously doing a Zoom call. And Meghan's obviously got a shaft of light coming onto her. And this lady says to her, "Oh, I'm being interviewed by an angel."
Oh, God.
And I quote, and you go, "Oh my goodness me." I mean, if that is not blowing the proverbial, making Meghan feel all about Meghan, and I'm sorry, this lady would have plenty to say, and she did. I mean, I listened to it all, and she's very interesting. But it always seemed to come full circle about what Meghan was thinking. And if you look now, as ever, she's gone from, every product on the As Ever site is sold out. Now she's saying she may not be wanting to sell jam anymore. So she has not got the Midas touch when it comes to launching businesses at the moment.
Yeah.
Because all these things require incredible hard work and commitment. And at the moment, and what was also very evident in this podcast, how important family was to the lady being interviewed. And her father really helped her with her business, her brother, her mother.
Right.
Meghan hasn't got any of that. And that seemed to stand out to me because Meghan's got no family to turn to. So apart from her husband.
Right.
Well,
that's because she's broken off with all of them. You'll be pleased to know, Rupert, I've got a little snippet here from Confessions of a Female Founder. This is the final episode. Here we go.
For a lot of people, not being able to buy into the hope or the promise of something more for themselves and financial freedom. I think so many women, especially, we're taught to not even talk about money. And there's lots of guilt mentality surrounding.
There is.
Having a lot, and then at the same time there's a scarcity mindset that it's easy to attach to, of like, I'll never have enough. And I think if you're able to, in your 20s, with all the noise that surrounds, that you were just able to get so quiet and clear, it's profound.
Thank you.
Yeah, super. What was that even about?
Well,
scarcity issue. You haven't got money. If you got too much money, you're guilty. I mean, do me a favour.
And it's the earnest way she asks these questions that is so gag-inducing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How about this, though? She also told US business magazine Fast Company, this is Meghan, that she wouldn't know what to call myself. Right? I got a couple of ideas.
Well, yes, because she doesn't know whether she's an entrepreneur, a showbiz celebrity. What is she?
How about she's none of the above? I think she would be called in, when I used to go and hang around in the sort of parts of Los Angeles that she used to hang around in, she's one of those actress, model, whatevers. She's an AMW.
I think, yes, but part of her problem is she's launching these products, they're not working. Netflix say they want to have redo the deal, and a third series of the cooking program is likely to be commissioned. We see the next one in the autumn. I don't know where it's going to go. Look, it's the series is over.
Bin, I should think.
The podcast series. She's now done 2 podcast series, which have to say haven't been successful as perhaps they had hoped to be, because Meghan doesn't always makes it about her.
Yeah.
And the point of a good podcast, if you have a guest, it should be about that individual and give them the absolute to grab the stories and the headlines from what her guest is saying, rather than make every headline seems to be about Meghan, what she's saying, and her journey.
Yeah, I know.
Which someone needs to tell her. Look, you've got to turn it round. Make it about the individual. Then you might start getting less negative headlines.
Yeah, I think it's very good advice, Rupert. Well played. Thank you. Well, let's talk about China again next time we have you on. I'd like to find out more about that. Rupert Bell talks royal correspondent, put himself through the torture of watching or listening to Confessions of a Female Founder from Meghan, talking to Sarah Blakely about money.